my thing is surround yourself with people that can say no. And if you surround yourself with people that say yes, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And you see that with these ego-driven leaders is they surround themselves with yes men, and they did stupid things because no one would check their ego or tell them they're wrong.
This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Hi, this is Eric, and welcome back on today's show. We have Jeff Hoops, the CEO of Swinerton, and we're going to take a dive into what it means to be a servant leader. It's a great conversation. I think you should really check it out because Jeff is committed to the success of his organization and really giving his best effort as a servant leader to his people to ensure the long-term strength of the organization, because Swinerton is a ESOP. They've been an ESOP since 1983. And they intend to be in business as an ESOP for many, many years to come. Jeff takes a very long-term approach to his leadership, and that's why he's committed to being a servant leader. And we also take a look at how that is expressed in his executive team, specifically how he insists that people push back against him and don't say just yes for the sake of placating the CEO, right? He doesn't want yes men in his leadership team. He wants people who have different opinions and different perspectives and different experiences and are able to bring those to the table for the betterment of the organization. So check out this episode today. It's brought to you by the Construction Leaders Dashboard. It's a great tool. If you lack clarity as a leader on what's most important for you and for your organization, check out the Construction Leaders Dashboard because it'll give you a simple step-by-step process to get some clarity on 8 of the most important aspects of your leadership. Go to my website at ericanderton.com/construction leaders dashboard. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can check out the dashboard there, download it for free, fill it out, and get some clarity on what's most important and how you can lead your organization more successfully. So check out this episode again with Jeff Hoops of Swinerton. Appreciate you listening. It's my pleasure to have Jeff Hoops from Swinerton back on the show. Thank you for joining me, Jeff.
Thank you, Eric.
You know, Jeff, you are in 1983, Swinerton became an ESOP, and you're now the 5th CEO under the ESOP structure. How does the structure of your company in terms of an ESOP affect your leadership approach?
Good question. Well, let me give you a little history and how we even got involved in this and transition. So I started out here after graduate school and didn't have a dime to my name, had a child. I didn't realize how expensive it was to work in San Francisco, so I had to go ask for a raise after like 3 months because I couldn't pay my.
Now, this was in the
bills.
80s, right?
This is like 1984.
So it was expensive in 84,
Real expensive. Well, when you're not making anything, it was really tough. So, but we started out here basically just, making ends meet like everybody else. I had no family connection with the business. I have no family working in the business. I was on my own.
Right.
And so it was interesting to watch the evolution here is because we've built our wealth here through sweat equity.
Okay.
What I mean by that is that I think it was probably 1993, 10 years after I started here, I began to get ownership shares in this company.
Right.
And we're able to build wealth here at Swinerton. I have superintendents that retire with $1 million in shares. I mean, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's
beautiful. It really is. It's beautiful because they're able to get rewarded for their efforts here at Swinerton. And same with us. I mean, we built wealth here at Swinerton. All of us have done very well here, and it's all sweat equity. And, you think about it. So we've taken this company that was, kind of when I started here, we did $200 million a year. It was a local San Francisco company. We did a little bit of work in LA, but, that was about it, really. There wasn't much more to it. And we've built it into one of the, top 10 commercial builders in the United States.
Right.
And we've done that just through sweat equity, saving our money. Every time we made enough money, we put it back into retained earnings.
You didn't buy a speedboat, or
we didn't buy a speed. We don't have a plane.
You don't have a plane?
We get on Southwest Airlines just like everybody else. And people go, how come you have 500,000 Southwest airline miles? Well, that's because that's what we do, right?
That's beautiful.
And we get on Southwest every day with everybody else, and hopefully get on early enough to get an aisle seat. But anyway, so from that, it's kind of like taking care of your home and your family, is because you want to put enough money away to make sure everybody's going to be okay. And when you get to the point in your career where you begin to think about retirement and getting your stocks bought out and all that kind of stuff, you begin to really think about bringing up young people to take over the business, right? There's no more family involved in this business at all. So it's all employees, just like us, that came in with no connection to the family and have worked hard to build our wealth and to gain ownership shares and to gain positions in the company of management. So the way I look at this is servant leader. I'm in my job because I'm voted into that job. I have no right to this CEO chairmanship. I've been asked to do this by my employees. They come to me and then they vote at the shareholders and they vote me into office. And if without the employees supporting me, I'm not the CEO chairman. Somebody else would be CEO chairman. I have no right. I have nothing that says you have to be CEO chairman.
Right.
But my employees have asked me to do that.
Okay.
So that's the difference, I think. And you look at servant leadership, I am put in office to serve them.
Okay.
That's what this is all about. So when I leave, people come to us all the time and say, you guys want to sell your company.
Right.
And I said, I've had 4 or 5 huge international companies come in and say, would you like to sell your business? I said, no. They said, why not? I said, because it's not my business to sell.
Oh, that's interesting.
You think about that. My employees, every time I look at one of these deals, and I look at them because they all bring them to me and I take them to the board and we talk about them.
Right.
But the only people that get wealthy in these sales, just like any other sales, talk about ESOPs, these companies selling, is the people leaving. So if we sell these businesses, I get really wealthy.
Right.
But the young people in the business get nothing.
Right.
So I can't do that. I came here with nothing.
Right.
And I've made my wealth. It's not fair for me to sell this business or do anything that will disrupt the ability for these young people to build their wealth.
So it's interesting because, right now in our economy, everyone's been, pretty successful. I mean, if you're not successful as a construction contractor right now, there's something wrong with you. But obviously there's ups and there's downs, and you've been through those ups and downs. From the perspective of being a servant leader and taking care of your employees, what did you focus on during the down periods in the business in order to maintain that relationship?
Well, we're not that different than others. We had layoffs. I mean, we did.
Yep.
And what we try to do is basically keep our top performers working and taking care of everybody we can. We took pay cuts.
Interesting.
I took a 10% pay cut along with my executive team in order to keep people employed.
Right on.
Because again, it's the family. You cut the budget.
Right.
And the employees took pay cuts. We did that in order to keep people employed and going so we can keep our best people working. And the people that weren't top performers didn't stay.
Right.
Which is appropriate.
Right.
But again, we worked as a family unit to keep the whole thing going.
Yeah, it's interesting, the idea of sort of the benefit of a downturn in a certain sense, that you can really sort of restructure around those top performers, and the warm bodies don't necessarily need to stick around.
It's interesting on a downturn, our margins almost doubled from where they were at because we were so focused on every job, making it successful and making our clients happy because we wanted that next job. So our margins went way up during the downturn versus when everybody's so busy. Things slide by and people get in trouble and they lose money. But in a downturn, you focus on every job and every client to make them 100% successful.
So you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar construction company. What do you do to keep your ego in check on a daily basis, would you say? So
again, looking back on my role here as a servant leader, I've watched, I guess it's a lot of it's from lessons learned. I've watched this happen over and over in our business, and you hear it in this paper. You read about it in the papers. You hear about it all the time, where a company's led by a flamboyant, charismatic ego deal, right? And 99% of the time, that company's no longer around. Yeah. It happens over and over and over again. So I've seen it happen here with some huge competitors in San Francisco, where that got in trouble, ran out of cash, did some stupid moves because they didn't have the right leadership team in place to challenge each other, and the leader made bad decisions. Okay. I mean, there's nobody to check the leader, right? When somebody is flamboyant, big ego, drive, no one's there to check them. They're just going to say, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's when they end up in trouble. So they end up out of cash. They end up getting sold internationally. Mm-hmm. They're basically out of business. And that happens over and over and over again. So I've watched it so many times. And here's how we work here. And I think this is a great lessons learned for any company out there. Is my thing is surround yourself with people that can say no. And if you surround yourself with people that say yes, you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Yep.
And you see that with these ego-driven leaders is they surround themselves with yes men, and they did stupid things because no one would check their ego or tell them they're wrong.
Give me an example of a time when someone said no to you and you thought they were wrong, but then they turned out to be right.
It happens a lot.
That's awesome.
Here's how we're in fact, we're going to sit down next Monday as a group here because we have some people retiring, and we're laying out the next between 5 and 7 years. We'll lay it out, our executive team.
Right.
And we're going to start out with years across the top and skill sets on the left side.
Okay. So you got years across the top, skill sets down the left.
So then each one of these skill sets is who fills that role.
Okay. Now, when you say years they've been in the business?
No, in future years.
Oh, future years. Okay.
Yeah, we're looking out 5-7 years.
Okay, yeah.
So as people retire and they drop out, who's going to replace that? Yeah. So we need somebody on the executive team that's operations driven.
Yep.
Somebody that's a business person.
Yep.
A finance person.
Yep.
And a salesperson.
Yep.
So you can have one or two others in there depending on what the mix is, but you have to minimum have those. You got to have a chair, right? Four legs on the chair.
Yep.
And so what we're going to do is lay out exactly who's going to fill those spots for the next 5 to 7 years and who's not here.
You mean where you've got a hole?
A void.
Yeah.
So in that void, who's going to be able to take that spot in 5 years or 4 years? Who's going to be our business partner when our business chief administrative officer retires?
Right.
Who's going to manage accounting or HR or risk?
Right.
Who's going to manage those? So we're going to sit down and lay that out. Mm-hmm. And the key to this whole thing is having those skill sets filled on your executive team.
Yep.
And then filled with people that have the ability to stand up for what they believe.
How do you figure that out? How do you figure out that part? Because you know what happens sometimes is like you have a guy who's, or a gal who mans up or, stands up when they're in their role, but then they come into the executive role and all of a sudden, things change. And how do you bring their voice out? How do you make sure they're the types of people who will stand up to you?
I think, again, that's why we do this process. Uh-huh. And we know most of the people. We understand the ones that can stand up and present and communicate and will express themselves. So we have a pretty good idea who the future leaders are for the next 10 years, right? We have an idea who can do that job.
Yep.
And then how do you fill them in these roles? And I'll give you an example again. We'll be in a meeting, and there's 4 of us on the executive committee, and I'll say, well, I want to do this, and my head of operations will say, there's no way. That's not a good business decision. I said, what do you mean? So we always have these open discussions, and not my guys, the 3 guys that sit with me in this room are not afraid to challenge.
That's great.
And they're smart people. And I'd say that most of the time they're right. If they're really emotional about something and don't believe it,
right.
Most of the time we'll have an open discussion and we'll come up with a solution and idea. And when we leave the room, we're all in agreement.
Okay. So then so let's talk about that. What do you do in a circumstance where you have that open conversation and yet they're willing to commit, but they're still, at some point, you've got to make the call?
So it's interesting. I've never had to make the call.
Interesting.
Never, ever. I've never had to make the call and tell everyone else this is the way it is in my entire career. Because when we leave this room, we have a consensus. We're gonna arm wrestle until we come to the point where there's a majority.
Right.
Majority rules.
Uh-huh.
And then when we leave the room, it's 100% support. We don't play any other games. This is the way it is. When these decisions are made here, that's what happens.
Right.
We don't second guess. Uh-huh. We don't do corridor commando type stuff where we're bad mouthing each other. We are the decision process for this company, and it's an arm wrestle in here. And when we're done with the executive meeting, whatever we decide is what we go do.
How does that that culture, that executive team culture, how does that then filter down through the various operating groups? Because you're a very diversified company. How does that get expressed in those meetings when you have those sub-teams, so to speak, getting together?
I'm trying to think of how to respond to that one. We do have different layers, levels of people. So policy is set here or managed here at this group, right?
Right.
And then we have what we call area managers.
Right.
And there's 4 of those. And one of those has recently joined the executive committee.
Interesting.
And so then we have an area managers meeting once a month, and we'll sit down with each and walk through that process. And then they have a division manager meetings once a quarter. And so all these type of thing, any kind of decision process, anything needs to be discussed, anything needs to be rolled out at those meetings, that's where it's done.
Right.
So it's basically taken to them on a personal basis and presented. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we have this hierarchy that we go through, but I think a key starts right at the top with your executive team. So I have one partner who's from the craft side. He started swinging a hammer for us at 18 years old.
Right.
He was an intern.
Right.
40 years.
And
he's the guy that challenges me the most. It's like every meeting he's challenged me with something because he has a different perspective than I do, right?
Right.
He's a field guy.
Yep.
And I'm saying, well, we should do this. He goes, my craft can't do that. We can't do that, right?
Yep.
And he's right almost all the time because he's been out there swinging a hammer and doing those things. Then I have another gentleman on the executive committee that's a finance person. He runs risk, accounting, all that stuff. And he's always saying, well, that's not good investment because I can get a higher return doing drywall.
Right.
Why am I investing in this type of deal? Right. So we have all these different perspectives. And you know what? We respect each other. And
what is the average tenure of the folks who are in that executive group?
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years together.
30 years together.
30 years together.
That's deep.
That's crazy, isn't
That's
it?
deep.
Yeah.
So why is it, do you think, you guys have been committed to each other for so long? What have you really focused on to make sure? Because, man, it's hard to stay in a relationship for, 2 or 3 years. What do you guys focus on there?
So, again, it's one of those things where we have to rely on each other to be successful. Our future, you think about it, one day we're going to retire.
Right.
And we want to retire with enough money to go travel and do what we want to do and all these things, right?
Of course.
And feed our families just like everybody else. So we rely on each other. One person can really screw things up.
Right.
So we're partners. I mean, we have pick up the phone. I mean, I talk to my couple of business partners here every day about this investment, that thing. I mean, we're so focused on the future of this business. And because we're personally tied into this thing, you think about it, our net worth is tied up in this company.
Because of the ESOP.
The ESOP, everything. I mean, it's tied up in this company. We need to succeed as a company, to succeed as individuals. It's so entwined.
Interesting.
Our families, my kids work here. I mean, everybody's entwined in these businesses because you work day and night, and your net worth and your self-worth and everything else is tied up in this.
That's interesting.
And that's what's important here is that ESOP is so important to tie people together. Without the ESOP, I don't know how a lot of companies do it. If it's especially like, say, one person owns the whole company,
right.
That's a difficult deal.
Okay.
Because how do you get your employees committed into the deal, right? How do they get their share of the company? How do you reward them? So they get a salary and they get a bonus.
Right.
But they don't build any wealth.
Right.
They spend what they get.
Right. So
our goal here is to build wealth for our employees. Like I said, I have superintendents retiring with $1 million. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's beautiful. So in terms of the structure of the business and your servant leadership, what advice would you give to someone who's perhaps struggling with their leadership, is maybe too dictatorial? Because, it's like construction is like, this is how we're going to do it, and it's my way or the highway. And there's guys who have the old school style. They're going to get on the job site. They're going to yell until it gets done, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see that developing?
So I look at that and I look at what we do.
Yeah.
That's short term.
Okay.
There's the difference. I'm looking for the next 100 years.
Right on.
So I'm looking to, I have a list of all my high performing employees. We know who's where, engineers, where they're at, who's doing really well, who needs training, who needs mentoring.
Right.
We've done all this because we're looking for the next 100 years. Not this guy that's the demanding, beating on the table. That company won't survive past him.
Right.
That's gone. He must just close it up, or his kid takes it over and has the same. We see it all the time.
Right.
I mean, his kid takes it over and it fails.
Yeah.
because that's not what we do here. Here is all about nurturing the future. And my goal and my pride is I'm not going to be the guy that screws this thing up and sells it or whatever happens. My goal is to make these young people wealthy and give them the business. It's a gift.
Let me ask you this, because I remember one time when I was in business, I was working for this company and I went through some really challenging times personally. And one of the things that I always remember is how the CEO of the company, and because my performance dropped as a result of some of those personal challenges, but the CEO of the company was extremely supportive to me through the midst of all of that. And I really attribute one of the things that enabled me to come out of that hard time was his support. So in terms of your long-term perspective on relationships, how do you support people through the ups and downs of their personal lives as it relates to the business?
That's a great question. I mean, I've got some examples. Some we've done well, some we haven't done so well.
Okay.
I mean, that's the truth of it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think, here's an example. One of our senior guys got divorced.
Yeah.
And just went AWOL. I mean, it's normal. It happened.
Yes.
And I sat down with him 3 or 4 times and said, "You okay? You're not really holding up your end of the bargain right now." And, we stuck with him. I mean, we stuck with him all the way through it. And after about 2 years, he came back around. And we were patient. We're like family, right? You don't throw your kids out.
Right.
Kids get in trouble. You do your best to fix everything, right?
Right.
We do the same thing here. We stuck with him. Made sure he got paid. Everything's okay. Got him some counseling. And right now he's a superstar. He's really kicking butt.
Yeah.
But he went through 2 years of hell. I mean, it was difficult, but we treated him like family, right? I mean, just like you do with your own children.
Yeah.
And they've worked here for 28 years, whatever, and they have a couple bad years. Well, that's life.
Right.
That's life. We got to deal with it.
So you got to demonstrate some patience there.
Patience.
Yeah.
And then he's come around, and he's the last year and a half, 2 years, what an amazing job he's done. And he's actually doing better than he did.
That's excellent.
So, but it is just patience. I think it's that familiarity, the family type situation, how we look at things here.
Right.
And, and the ESOP is an interesting, it's good. It's good and bad. Downside is people want probably more cash than they can get out of here because we, continue to put nice equity in the business and grow shares.
Yep.
A little bit of downside, but the upside is people can really build big wealth. They can do great here over the years if you want to stick around. You really don't make, you think about an ESOP, you don't make real money until you're here about 15 years.
That's interesting.
So I did this scale, right? And I graphed it all and stuff. And the young guys coming out, when they hit about 15 years here, all of a sudden they realize they're really building wealth.
Interesting.
Because all of a sudden you're making 20% a year on your shares and you've got a nice basis and you look around and you got a ton of money. But it takes a while. So you have to be patient and nurture those people along. In 5 years, a young person will look at their ESOP and they don't even care. They're just going to walk away, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter to them.
Right.
And but here, when you become a shareholder, you have 401k matching, you have ESOP matching. It's a good way to build wealth.
And how does your ESOP structure affect your strategy moving forward? The strategy of the business. How do you look at that?
Yeah, and that's a good question too. So let me think about this for a second. The best way to answer that question is for us to move forward, we have to put money on the bottom line. Simple as it is, right? We have to make money every day, and we have to put it on the bottom line every day to build this thing, right? If we're going to go do $5 billion, if you look at the surety thing, you can do 20 to 1 on your equity, right? And so revenue wise, so if I do have $200 million on my bottom line, I can do $4 billion in revenue.
Right.
If I need $250 million to do $5 billion in revenue, that's the basic rule of surety support and stuff. So if we want to keep growing, we have to keep putting money and retained earnings on the bottom line. We don't have a choice.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to do. Then try to balance this whole thing with retained earnings, return to shareholders, and then cash bonuses. I mean, this whole thing's just like a big math equation, right? And so we need to continue to build this. I'd like to see my shareholders, in the next few years have $500 million in equity, right? It'd be a nice pool of money to have sitting there that it's theirs.
Right.
And it's their money, right? It's the employees' money.
That's awesome.
And so that's what we're trying to get to is that point. Then they can make whatever decisions they want. They can do any kind of work they want. They can be the size they want by growing that bottom line. So it's that 20 to 1 rule or 5% case is what they call it.
And so that comes into every strategic decision that you make moving
We
forward.
talk about it. Yeah. We talk about growth. We just don't grow for growth's sake.
Right on.
I mean, we don't want to do that. We don't care. I mean, it's all bottom line driven.
That's right.
If I can do $4 billion a year and do 3.5%, 4%, 5%, 6% EBITDAs, I mean, I'm happy. I'll stay at $4 billion. I don't care. Right. We don't need to grow the top line. We really don't care. It's all about the bottom line.
I think that's one insight with it's because sometimes it can be so ego driven in construction, getting your name on the latest and greatest building and stuff like that. Because there's such a gap between the revenue and the cost. And then, that's the game, is expanding that gap.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the bottom line. I mean, building these big towers and stuff. I mean, forget the ego side of it. It doesn't matter. We can go build power plants and make double the fees. We'll build all the power plants we can. Right on. So that's what it's all about, is getting return to shareholders. Do you think about it? Everything we do is maximizing the EBITDA to return to our shareholders, either through cash bonuses or stock appreciation or pay taxes or 401k matches or whatever that is. It's interesting that 90 cents this year, 90 cents of every dollar that we received in EBITDA went to employees.
That's awesome.
90 cents, 10% went to the government.
That's great.
It's all managed top line.
That's great.
So it's pretty cool. These employees can build that wealth, especially through that ESOP, stock ownership program, to do it. I think we talked a little bit about ESOPs and the failure of ESOPs. And I've looked at so many different companies. Some of them were ESOPs. And I think the biggest travesty of all this is when you have owners trying to retire and they utilize an ESOP to do it.
Yes.
It's kind of a disaster if you think about it, because there's really two conflicting camps. One is the person trying to leave who wants 3 or 4 times equity or EBITDA, however you want to look at it, and the people that stay that maybe it's worth 2 times.
Right.
So you have this big battle going all the time. So the guys staying get stuck with the bills to pay the guy out that's leaving.
Right.
And if the guy that's leaving gets 4 times book value or 3 times book value, and the stocks are really worth book value, they're paying this massive premium, and they're borrowing money. A lot of them borrow money out of the bank to buy these shares at inflated prices.
Right.
That's a huge issue.
Right.
And that's why you got to be so careful with ESOPs. I just saw one in Atlanta called, what was Choate, where the ownership, it was all over ENR, so it's all public information, where they valued their shares at $100 million and went and borrowed all this money. And they closed the loan, paid the owners out, and then it got revalued at like $20 million in like a matter of weeks. It's crazy. It was in ENR. You should read the article and the threat of to ESOPs by having ownerships that are greedy, basically.
Really? Yeah. So it's interesting because, you guys have been ESOP since 1983. So when you structured it to begin with, you did your best to avoid that, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's all on book value. It's just real simple. It's equity divided number of shares. Real simple. We don't do market appraisals every year.
Right.
We're pre-86 ESOPs. We're able to do that.
Right.
And we just basically wanted to be steady, no games. Everybody's treated the same, in and out. And whichever your appreciation is what you get. There's no other games.
Right on.
And it's a good way to do it. And so as close as you can get to book value, I think, is fair for everybody.
So as you reflect on your career here, you got another 20 years here?
Yeah, right. I hope not.
I know, huh? As you reflect on your career, what would you say, Jeff? What would you like your legacy to be in terms of the commitment that you've made to the industry and the impact you've had on other people?
My main impact would be for our company, first of all, and to the young people coming up. I think what I've done is I've shown our employees how to make money. Right. And before we were typical GC and every year just trying to make a buck. Right. It's ridiculous. If that's what you're doing out there, you need to really rethink what you're doing, because it's not, for all the effort and pain and blood and sweat and tears, and to make 1% or less. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, you got to rethink your business.
Right.
And so my legacy again is that I've shown our teams here how to make money and how to think about what you need to be in the future to do that.
Right on.
And that's my legacy. And then also providing that roadway and pathway to our employees to build their own wealth and to be part of the future here. And that's really what I'm proud of. I don't, looking out there, I don't remember one building I built that I really care much about. It's just a building.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not an ego guy again with the big towers and stuff. We built lots and lots of huge towers and they're pretty, but I mean, it's what we do, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest thing for me is having a legacy here at the business and having a great group of partners and having the young people taking it over and ability to move it forward. That's what I'm most proud of.
Great.
Because it's just built up to be a wonderful company.
That's great. That's great.
That's what I'm most proud of.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, Jeff. Just as the takeaways here, I really like what you talked about in terms of structuring the leadership team so that you have people who are willing to challenge each other, but then getting out of those meetings with a consensus and agreement. I really like the idea of how you're planning out your development of your executive team moving forward with the years on the top and the roles down the left side.
Yep.
And then the structuring of the ESOP. Structuring it in a way so it's not just for a boondoggle for, the first generation, but it's something that can be sustained over a long period of time.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Jeff, thanks for joining us here on the podcast. I really do appreciate your generosity and spending some time with us here today.
Thank you, Eric. It's been fun.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.